Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, Mika, Carolyn, Barnak, hello.
Oh, Mika, hi.
Hello.
Hello. Great to have you here.
Long time no see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got three continents already.
Yeah.
Lovely. Hello, everyone.
5, yeah. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, and I'm sure other people will be dropping in as we go. I just want to say we had planned for this to be a very interactive event, and it seems like it can be quite interactive. Oh, we've got Miss Kathy Ellis coming in as well. That's cool. So please, during this, plan on typing to the max. You can switch on your cameras if you'd like to. You can unmute at times, we will tell you, and there will be times during as we go in this that I will be explicitly asking you to respond to questions, and go ahead and put those in the chat box as we go. And like I said, there might be times at which we're talking as well. It is very wonderful. I'm so excited to be hosting this today. Anesh Daya, for all of you that saw my newsletter, is a colleague and a friend and a comrade. I'm just going to go ahead and say a comrade in this language coaching movement. And we are very excited to be featuring him, to get into his story, his experience, and also to address this subject of travel, language travel, if you will, and where we are at this point in the pandemic, and what that means for all of us that work with language travel. This event is hosted by ILCA, as you all know, and I do really, speaking of language travel, I do need to plug the first International Language Coaching Conference on July 2nd in London, England. We hope that you will be joining us, and we are extremely excited, Gabriella and myself, to be hosting the conference and bringing to you a variety of workshops and networking opportunities to really continue to build and push this movement forward. For those, for those of you that are here, great. And for others watching on the YouTube channel afterwards, hello, thank you for watching. And for those here that want to watch this again, this will be on our YouTube channel. So that's where you'll be able to find it. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Anesh. I'm not going to be totally quiet this whole time because that's kind of impossible, but I'm going to hand it over to Anesh to begin. And as I said, we are counting on you to jump in here and share your experience and thoughts and ideas and all of it. So, Anesh.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And it's such an honor to be here with fellow language coaches and to be able to talk about this topic that is so dear to my heart, which is traveling. And I've traveled to over 35 countries, speak 5 languages fluently, 7, not too bad. And thank you, Mika, Carolyn, Kathy, and who else is on the chat here? Yeah, for being part of this. This is really exciting for me. To be able to talk about this topic. So I'm going to quickly jump into it. Who am I? I'm not Japanese, Mika, gomenne. But I'm curious. Let's just first, because we're talking about travel, I'm going to tell you where I'm from, which is Toronto, Ontario. Carolyn's from Arlington. Farnak is from Iran. Mika, doko shushin desu ka? Where are you from? Or where in Japan, or what prefecture, or where in the States, or where in the world everyone is? USA, not far from Fukuoka. Yes, love it. Kyushu. I'm a big fan of the SoftBank Hawks and the Osadaharu Museum at the Yahoo Okudome, where the SoftBank Hawks play. So I love travel. When I travel around the world, I love learning language. I love learning about culture. And so for the past 13 years, I started, I've been running my own experiential language learning program here in Toronto, Canada. And it's a program where we make the city our classroom. So we take our students outside, talk to strangers all day, get them comfortable having real life conversations, and really get them to develop what we're going to talk about today is a little bit of language learning resiliency and how we all need that right now in or coming out of the pandemic. I'm not quite sure where we're at. And so part of that is, what have we been doing over the pandemic? How do we feel about that? And so we're going to hopefully dive into some of those feelings, and hopefully you'll all be able to share some of those feelings in the chat as well. So speaking over the pandemic, what have I been up to? Well, I was fortunate to be able to become a co-author in a book called The New Paradigm of Education, where I was able to share my passion for language learning and join a group of other educators. Was able to receive some awards in the midst of the pandemic, which was pretty amazing. And here we are today with other language coaches and hopefully joining a conference in July with everyone else. So what did the pandemic look like for me? What did travel look like for me before the pandemic? I was traveling all over Japan, mostly. And so I was in Okinawa, I was in Kagoshima, I was in Tokyo. For me, travel was a big part of business marketing, meeting new students, developing new relationships. And my partner is also Japanese, so it's nice to visit family as well. And so travel was a huge part of my life and built into my business, which was one of my dreams and visualizations years ago. How can I travel? And now with ILCA, everyone will hopefully be able to get to travel to England. I'm going to keep plugging that, by the way, throughout this. And so traveling was a huge part of my pandemic, and really part of my world came crashing down when the pandemic hit, because the whole basis of my program was taking students outside and talking to strangers. Wait, we can't do that anymore? What do you mean? The borders are closed? Yeah, that doesn't work for me. What do I do? Like many others, I broke down. I didn't know what to do. And so it really got me thinking, well, maybe we need to pivot online. And so one of my students developed a little logo for me. And well, I started online language coaching. And so that was a whole new world for me, from being outside every day, taking in nature, learning in motion, getting my students out of their comfort zone, to this, sitting down online with a big ring light in my face and meeting you beautiful people. So what did I do? Now that travel wasn't part of my program, I had to actually travel to Japan online. And I reached out to 13 years worth of students and said, how you doing? Do you still remember me? They're like, yes, Anesh, but we're stuck. We can't go anywhere. I had a student, this student right in the middle here, with the short hair and the headphones. Her name is Miho. She was a nurse and she was in quarantine. And she's like, Anesh, I need your help. I go, well, I can't travel there. So what can I do? She's like, I don't know. I just need your support. And I was like, okay. Uh, she's like, I'm depressed and I'm thinking of taking my life. I was like, number one, I'm not equipped to handle this conversation. Maybe you got to reach out to Judy Thompson because she might be able to help you out. No, and number two, I said, let me see how I can help you. What do I do in my daily lifestyle and my daily routines? And when we're not able to travel, we got to think of how to take care of our mental and physical well-being. So I said, well, let's start doing daily gratitude. Let's ask yourself, what are you grateful for every day? And she's like, okay, well, I'm grateful to have a job. I'm grateful to get paid while I'm in quarantine. And it's like, let's start doing some daily checklists. And she said, what was the best part of my day? What was the most challenging part of my day? What can I do better for tomorrow? So building some good daily habits that she should probably be doing in her own language, but now she's doing it in a second language. And then she actually came out of the quarantine in the hospital where she was at better than she was going into it. And so part of why me sharing this conversation is the conversation of what does it mean to be a resilient language coach, a resilient language learner in these times? And how do we take some of these skills, whatever they are, we're going to talk about them. What skills do we need to have to travel or just even within our own space? And this, for example, this woman in the hospital. And so being online actually provided new opportunities. One of my previous coaches was in Tokyo, and I helped him start his own language learning program. I met another woman like Carrie in Atlanta, and she's like, Anesh, I love what you're doing with on-the-spot language, but I'm curious, how can I make my city my classroom? I met other authors and educators. And then I started, well, you know what? The world is our oyster. We can travel online. And I think near the beginning of it, I was fortunate that Gabriella interviewed me as an edupreneur. So I'm very grateful for that. And I met these two other guys. If you look on the right, John and Paul, I met them online. I met this guy, John, who's in Toronto, but I met him through a woman I knew who was Japanese, who lives in Spain. I'm meeting people in my own city from getting introductions from people from all over the world. I co-hosted my own podcast with these guys and said, well, what's the English education system looking like in Japan? So creating new opportunities for myself to share my passion, my voice, and also doing online language coaching podcasts with my students. So this has all been part of my pivot journey. And then the one thing that really didn't change so much in Canada was we were still getting immigrants, we were still getting refugees. And now at a time more than ever, where people are fleeing Ukraine, the population of refugees that we're welcoming here in Canada is twofold more than it was pre-pandemic. And so me pivoting, saying, well, how can I take this time to develop a language settlement program to help newcomers and refugees? And so I partnered with all these organizations like ILCA to support me in what I'm doing in my endeavor, to help me share my voice. And so yes, I wasn't able to travel and meet people in person, but thinking how I could pivot and what I could do to reach out and connect with people to support other people in what they're doing and also support me at the same time. So I'm curious. I'm going to put it out there to everyone right now, and hopefully we can get people to start typing. So how have you been able to pivot? And what we'll do here, and Carrie can read them out, and I'm going to hopefully populate some of this. And I know Carolyn, Mika, Julia, Judy, I'm sure you all have some tips or tricks or ways that you've been able to pivot. So please type out. I'm curious how you've been able to pivot, and hopefully I can start typing some of these out. All right. Let's go. Let's start with you, Carrie and Gabriella.
Gabriella, I think Gabriella's got a great pivot.
All right.
If we're talking about pre-pandemic and during pandemic, right? So that's the kind of thing that we. Oh yeah, yeah.
There you go, Anesh. That's what I
There
was.
you go. I'm helping you out.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
I made a pretty big. I made the pandemic being very much indoors 24/7.
Yep.
To be beneficial for me as much as possible. So I embarked on this writing journey. So that was a lot of help. And I also supported my clients online. So that was basically the pretty big thing. So that's how and of course we were doing these online events with ILCA, these free events. So they kind of started around slightly before, but they made a pretty big impact.
Another thing you can put down, we started an online community. That was a big pivot for us too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think was well timed. And we've got some responses coming in here. Yeah. Let's see here. I moved my course online. Judy, yeah, I remember when all that happened with Tango. Yeah, participating in different webinars. That's so true, right? There were so many people, like learning became this huge thing, didn't it? Of like going to like all the webinars and all the.
Also, the conferences went online.
Right.
Yes.
Made it possible to attend and then to also be a presenter without having to attend.
Yeah.
And you talked about you built the community, and it allowed me to be a part of a community.
Brilliant.
Wonderful.
That's awesome.
I love that. Let's see here. There's also, this one's cool from Kathy. Widen services. Yes. So Kathy did IDI assessments, global networking, reached out to ILCA. I love how much ILCA is coming up in this. All the classes went online. Virtual orientation online. Oh yeah, that's a good one. Virtual orientations. Co-facilitated poetry groups, love it. Yeah, I rediscovered a lot of creativity also in the pandemic and tried to weave that into my professional things as well.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then like a widening of clients from various countries. That's what I'm seeing in Kathy's as well. So virtual orientation.
That happened for a lot of people. Sorry, Carrie.
Yeah.
So, this, you know, suddenly you notice, well, actually I can connect not only with people in my own city, but well, basically anywhere in the world. And it just, you know, sped up the process for that. So,
well, what it did was it eliminated or diminished the resistance to online education.
Yep.
Right.
Because we had to do it, and guess what? It worked, and in many ways it was better.
Yeah.
I love this.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Is that cool to jump in or not?
Yeah, jump in.
Anesh take two things really, really well that I'm starting to see more and more of, and I just love. So it was using English as a means to an end. And a guy, Michael Stewart, talks about skills first. And when he says it, you go, oh man, that makes so much sense. Can you give me an example? And he was is a scientist, a PhD in biophysics or something. And he got a job teaching at a girls' school for the arts. So 8 to 15-year-old girls who are dancers and singers, and he's supposed to teach them chemistry. And he wrote songs for them and created skits for them that showed chemistry. So you know, that was skills first. I thought, oh, that is so brilliant. They loved going to school. They learned everything about chemistry. He really spoke to what they needed. And when Anesh was talking about mental health and things like that, and using English for a goal, for a specific goal. And I love that, and I'm hearing more and more of it. So they're calling it skills first, which meant nothing to me, and now it means everything to me. And the other thing was the gratitude and how many doors and things opened up because of COVID. So, you know, disaster, and then just get in the game and what else is possible and what could I do at that time? And he's done both of these things really well. So
appreciate that, Judy.
Highlight that because, yeah.
The great thing of what Judy's saying, and I think we can all resonate, is like when you look at yourself and how you're built inherently and just what are your skills or talents or what do you strongly believe in. So exactly what Judy was saying is I actually have this attitude of gratitude and I'm always talking about it. And, you know, it's built into my program. And then someone from Wake Up with Gratitude podcast said, what how do you connect language learning and gratitude? How is that a pillar or core of your program? I go, how is it not part of everyone else's program? I mean, it comes natural. If you're starting your day with intentions and you know, visualizing the conversations you're going to have with people and you're living that attitude of gratitude and you have that baseline of like, I'm just grateful to wake up and to be able to afford to take your class. You know, it's so powerful what you can actually reach into your own toolkit and say, oh, I like gratitude. Let me do a podcast with gratitude and language learning, or, you know, so it's really amazing. And so let's continue. Thank you so much for sharing. This is beyond.
Carolyn would like to say something.
Yeah, please.
Well, this whole thing of English, and I will state up front that in terms of ILCA, because I'm also I'm interested in BSIG, which of course is all English, but language coaching can be any language. And
Absolutely.
I work in the somatic area, which crosses all languages. So one of my concerns is the marginalizing of people speaking of meetings and conferences and things like this in English, where we all know that someone might manage a language really well, but they don't think they do, so they don't participate. And we're missing voices. So one advantage that has been used a few times in meetings and webinars and stuff was the translation feature, where people could speak in whatever language was comfortable for them and it would be translated. And I think that's something, unless we're specifically targeting English and English language skills, we really need to be sensitive to a variety of languages and who are we missing. I just can't even begin to imagine the wonderful ideas and the creativity that we're not getting because so much is in English, and that is not what is comfortable for everyone.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Carolyn. That resonates really strong with me because there's actually an organization we have here in Canada that's all built around language advocacy and making language accessible for everyone. That's one of the benefits we have being in a multicultural country, or specifically Toronto. You can find everything in any language.
Right.
It's just, how do we empower people to also get rid of some of this notion of you need to speak perfectly, you need to speak with this accent, and getting people just comfortable with this globalized English, and how Judy always talks about intelligibility. and giving people a voice. But I totally hear and resonate with wanting to have more language advocacy out there in other countries. And I'm not sure in Europe, is it the same, Gabriella, more so?
Even more so. So very often we speak about English being the lingua franca. So I think that's a little bit what we're talking about, this issue that we're talking about here and addressing. Very often it comes up because the different European countries will speak English in a different, percentage, or, some are better, some are not so. And it's always a surprise when people ask me, for example, and can you coach somebody who does not speak English? And I say, well, there has to be a common language for me with them. But I work very often with Hungarian, as that's my other language. And I coach them if they want to be learning another language and it's not English, and I'm fine with that. And I don't even necessarily have to speak that language. So it can be this, common thread of speaking one common language and being able to, connect through the coaching with them. So that's interesting. But yeah, I think it's very true in Europe because it's kind of melting pot of so many different languages. But truth be, English is one of the common factors, so whether we like it or not, I'm not happy with it, actually.
No.
I think we have a responsibility, and not necessarily with ILCA maybe, but for example, CETAR Europa.
Oh yeah.
English. And even CETAR Deutschland will do many of their programs in English. I think CETAR France stays in French, but my point is, we are language professionals. We know all of the ins and outs. And that's another area of our expertise where we can try to come up with solutions to the exclusion of people because their language capability for what's been chosen to be the lingua franca they're not comfortable with it. And so that's one responsibility that I see as language coaches, language trainers.
I appreciate you sharing that, Carolyn, and I'll definitely get back to talking about travel and all that stuff as well. And I'm kind of going off track here, but
yeah, sorry
when I think about language settlement and welcoming, refugees and all that, and getting them comfortable with the different, areas that we have, at least here in Toronto, and getting them comfortable to meet the local baker, the local banker, and equipping them with the basic language tools and skills and the confidence they need to be able to open up a bank account or order a coffee or, present in that boardroom meeting if they need to be, or even having conversations. I've coached Uber drivers, and their English has improved twofold simply because of language that they've learned to be able to talk to their passengers in the back seat. And so getting back to what I was kind of saying about some of the skills that our students are needing and some of this resiliency work, and even just doing a daily check-in and getting them to give yourself a score out of 5. How do you feel today? How do you feel you did today? And again, developing these habits of language learning. And I'm not correcting all of these, but some students want them corrected, and that's fine. But the idea of just developing that new routine. But now, what expectations do we have when traveling? I mean, what are and aren't you comfortable with? So these two gentlemen here, John and Paul, who I started this podcast with, I had never met them. And we met for the first time in person. And this was actually my first time meeting people outside of my family bubble and circle. And I'm not sure what that was like for you, but I needed new sentences in my own. It's like, so guys, are you okay or not okay with masks? What's your, so I'm curious, Carolyn, Judy, Carrie, Gabriella, Julia, Kathy, anyone, Farnak, I'm curious, what language would you use? What sentences would you use when you first meet someone to break a little bit of that barrier, a little bit of that discomfort?
I'm surprised how many people just come straight out in Toronto, which is so multicultural, and say, "Are you vaccinated? Are you vaccinated? Are you vaccinated? Are you vaccinated?" Or they enter a community or group or conversation and say, "I'm double vaccinated" or "I'm triple vaccinated" as part of their introduction. It blows my mind how forward they are with the vaccination thing.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's your identity. Are you an
Yeah.
anti-vaxxer? That makes a difference to me, you know?
Right.
Are
Well,
you-
and it's interesting how rapidly that's changing too.
Yep.
Like a month and a half ago here in Atlanta, that was a very typical phrase to hear.
Yep.
And right now, because the news has changed about it, the mandates and all of this, like it's not, people aren't talking as, they're not wearing it as a badge of honor as much. So it's just, and the masks, same thing. You know, if it's about COVID, like etiquette, one of the things I say is like, are we masking? Do you mind?
Good.
That kind of thing. Like if I'm not wearing a mask and entering into a common space, just kind of like giving them, like giving whoever I'm meeting or whatever, that kind of giving them some power over it, because, you know. Yeah.
Control. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Great. Carolyn, have you been in any situations where you've had to use some of this language?
Well, I did have one trip last year to Montana, and my sister and I are out of sync with most of our relatives there, but I'll be traveling more, and whereas typically I just say, "Oh, my plane gets in late, can I stay the night with you before I go to the cabin?" Or "I'm coming to visit, but I will have spent all day on the airplane. Can I, when can I enter your house?" And I know that some people will say, "Just come on and we'll do the testing," but others are not in a situation where they can be that comfortable.
So true. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That like after travel buffer. I've even had like the first time I traveled during the pandemic to a different state, the person whose home I was going to, like as I got out of the airport cab up to door and knocked and realized, oh, this is a pandemic. And even though I was masked, like I've been in an airplane and now I'm going to enter into this person's home. Like we'd never addressed
Right.
it. And so I
Yeah.
just kind of stopped, and she stopped and then was like, "Just give me a hug. Like, it's fine. Come inside. You're not going to sleep on the
Right.
porch," but it was like that moment of like, oh my God, like the rules have changed.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, prefacing the travel stuff to gauge comfort. I think that's a great suggestion, Carolyn, in advance.
The amount of
I'm
people.
traveling right now.
I was going to say, you're somewhere in Cuba or Mexico or the Dominican. Tell me, Judy.
Oh my goodness,
Wow.
look at that.
Judy's here to make us all jealous.
Sorry, not sorry.
Where are you, Judy?
Mary, just what you said about the transitioning. So I got here on Tuesday and it was kind of masks optional. And then they just said, "You know what? All the mask restrictions are going April 1st. And between Tuesday and today, everybody stopped wearing them."
The free for all.
In
Right.
3 days, when you were talking about the transition, I just watched it, in a whole resort. We all arrived like this, and it's all lifted by April 1st.
We had that 2 weeks ago, and now it's not even a topic. There are other
Oh,
Of course.
much more, intensive situations, especially here in Hungary. But so we're kind of disregarding it now. So we've kind of moved on, and okay,
like that.
quite a lot of people are vaccinated, deaths are down, etc. So it's not. I think a few months ago this conversation would have been different. Now I think people are really like, let's just move on and let's try to, if you want to wear a mask, fine. If you don't want to vaccinate, that's also fine. It's more about, people feel more in control now somehow. Maybe it's not true, I don't know, but I have this general feeling.
It's changed. Yeah, my thing with us, with this though, is that like, it's changed this time. We've seen this change kind of before,
Right.
so it could change back too.
For me, Gabriella, Judy, Carolyn,
Mm.
Farnak, Kathy, for me, and of course Mika, it's what have we learned? I haven't gotten sick in over 2 years. My routines, people in Asia have been wearing masks since SARS, and I was in Taiwan when I was in SARS. I was teaching with the mask. Or what have we learned? Or is it like, has everything just gone out the window? And
Mhm.
like Harry's saying, well, yeah, we're going to have these, peaks and troughs and valleys. So what new routines have we actually learned that we can actually apply that are actually going to make a difference for everyone's, well-being? And again, just putting that out there.
I hope there's a lot more hand washing and just general hygiene. But I feel like the fear has gone down. So I feel like if you caught it, you're not going to die, sort of thing. So yeah, but at the beginning, it was so fearful. Everything, going to the grocery store, am I going to die going to the grocery store, sort of thing. I think the whole
I think
changed. For me, I'm less fearful.
Yeah, I think, and as we know, the placebo effect, right? When the media and everything around you, this is so powerful. If everyone around you is sick, you know what? I think I have a sore throat, So what you hear around yourself, what you're around and you surround yourself with, it's what you get from the media, everything else. When your attention is diverted, oh, okay. So a big part of that is the mindset. And so thank you for sharing that. So when I think about, and Judy is the perfect sample for this right now, what's in your travel resiliency toolkit? What skills have you
wait,
learned?
Anesh,
Sorry.
before we move on from that, I do need to say there's a big one that came in through the chat that I want.
Oh, yeah,
that
please.
last slide, because you were asking what have we learned, and Kathy said we've learned more consideration of others. So all of these things we're talking about, all those little,
Right.
I've traveled and are we masking, all that really does come down to that consideration of others, I would say. So
Absolutely. So as a language coach, and the skills that we approach or utilize with our clients or colleagues, or what skills do we have that are going to help us as we kind of come through this? And I'm curious from Judy right now, what are some things that you've kind of taken from all this, or when we can travel, and because we all want to come to London in July. So what skills do we all need? I'm thinking, empathy comes to mind.
A lot of patience. People are like, even the
Mm.
check-in process at the airport, which
Huge.
used to be kind of streamlined and even electronic, that's over. Like, there's stringent and long lines, and there's a lot of patience. And I think people are just more patient and more considerate, really.
Sure. Yeah.
adaptability is always important when traveling, especially
Yeah.
during these times too, right?
Yeah.
Huge.
If things change while you're gone, to be able to adapt to that.
We're not
Huge.
screen sharing at the moment, Anesh.
Yeah. No, my program crashed, so I'm just
All right, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think another thing is, I think we just have to be much more aware of the planning processes that we have. So being more, in a way, mindful of the time that we need to prepare for everything. So it's not just, I'll just go and do it, but you have these extra steps that we've mentioned earlier.
And I think the empathy, yes, because everybody has to understand that we have no idea what impact this whole 2 years or more has had on somebody that we're encountering. And that's why empathy and patience and consideration of others is so important.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
listening is a big coaching to, skill, isn't it? So
Huge.
we've got that.
I guess this is about travel, but you know how sometimes even in coaching, although it's kind of supposed to go where they're taking you, but we have to kind of stay on track. But I think there's less more go with the flow for conversations. And I was thinking, especially with training or coaching, what people may need to really talk about in the moment, or the way they have to process or use the lesson, can not be at all what we had planned, but we really, again, active listening and just sitting with people.
Yeah.
In silence, that's part of language as well, being quiet, which I'm not demonstrating. So I will be quiet now.
Absolutely. This is great. I mean, again, I'm presenting this, but I'm here, I'm learning from you all, as we all do from us language coaches. So constant state of learning. And it's interesting to talk about that, because some of the things that I'm hearing from my learners and these ESL agencies that I work with about just being online, and some of these students also their fears. I'm like, this is a little bit diverged here, but when I think about, there are obviously, like Carolyn mentioned, there are many pros to online learning: more accessibility, conferences, seminars, more accessible programs that students have access to than ever before. They don't need to travel and spend so much money to go abroad. The biggest thing I'm hearing from a lot of learners is they're frustrated of being on a screen all day.
Yeah.
They're
Focus.
sitting down, they're gaining weight. There's no intrinsic motivation to get up, to get out. The brain is not getting any oxygen when we're sitting down. So are we actually learning? How much are we actually retaining? And so from what I'm hearing from these agencies, I'm like super excited, because everyone's like, we want to be outside again, Anish. We want to start communicating with humans again. So I'm excited for my business on that front. But and again, everyone has different contexts in their businesses. So have you heard anything from your learners about their struggles being online? Maybe just a few comments or.
I've heard that it's hard for them to focus. Focus has come up from a variety of people.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah. We can't hear you. You're muted.
You're muted, Kathy.
Kathy, you're
You're-
muted.
There we go. The
Thank
dreaded
you
mute
very
button.
much. That's another thing that goes online with our clients is you need to unmute, especially
It's a
if you
good
have
sentence.
a class.
Yeah.
But I get the feeling that they don't think it's real learning.
Mhm.
Somehow there's a mindset that it's not a substitute for real learning.
Wow.
But I think most feel that they go back to the traditions that they know about learning, how they learn the language and how, I think there's this kind of reluctancy or to think about how traditionally, how that they learn the language. Some of them adapt very well, but I would say more so that there's some kind of resistance, or maybe they would rather do this, like real learning or teaching happens on location.
Hmm.
Absolutely, yeah.
And as coaches, we have a responsibility to kind of question that, right? Or at least, you know, help them to define what real learning is or what ideal learning is. So that's actually a great opportunity to have that conversation and get a bit more aware of if they can create some sort of agency, you know, autonomy for themselves. And it doesn't really matter whether they're online or not. Obviously, it's much more, you know, it's better socially, emotionally to connect with people face to face. But if it's online, the learning is still there, but just in a different form, maybe.
Just in a different form, sure.
So
Yeah, I'm also thinking like socially too, you know, if you do have a whole class, there's a social element to it.
Oh, yeah.
That it's not only the language piece, but it's a connection with others.
Yeah.
100%.
And I think that's what it comes down to for learners is like somehow the objective. Like I hear from younger learners online so much that say, it's just not the same, or I want to be in person. And I feel like the objective for them is more the person-to-person contact kind of thing. Whereas like when I think about going to a business meeting versus taking like an adult professional development course, I would never go back into like a learning, like a course again in person. Like, why would I ever even do that? What an inconvenience when I can get information fed to me in a very suitable way for me. But a business meeting, a conference, heck yeah, I want to be there in person. I want to be in it, you know, to plug the conference again. No, but really, I think the difference is like objective of what you're trying to get out of it. And for us as language coaches, this becomes very important, this question.
Yeah, absolutely. The objective and each learner's goals and how we cater and customize our lessons accordingly to what their needs are is huge. And that's why we do what we do. For me, I've found that when I'm trying to do what I do and do it online, because language, there's so much connected to your physical environment. So when we're meeting in front of the statue of Sir John A. Macdonald and they're physically there and they're learning the history from a stranger, the smell, the sights, all of their senses are engaged. And so they'll remember 20 years later, oh, Sir John A. Macdonald, well, you know, he killed millions of Chinese trying to build the railroad across Canada, right? And they're like, oh, okay. And the other person, well, you know, 1867, July 1st, Canada Day, you know, he's the father. And they're like, oh, and they're getting all these different perspectives, but they're in front of that statue, but that physical learning and that environment is so powerful to memory retention because you're engaging all of your senses. And that's so powerful as a learner. Which you can only get so much of online, of course. And I know we're over an hour already, and I had lots of other questions that we've already addressed anyway, about risk taking. How do we build awareness around speaking with strangers, like asking for permission, wearing a mask, even teaching students how to deal with rejection. You know, take off your mask. What the hell's wrong with you? No, that's okay. Thanks anyway. I'm gonna wear my mask. Keeping a distance, being able to just take a breath, get focused again is huge. And I was really excited to actually share this. I partnered with an agency a couple weeks ago, and we actually took a student outside and wearing masks and spoke to a few strangers. And I don't know if you can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate very much. Have a beautiful day. Thank you.
So, question: what do the holidays mean? So, what do the holidays mean to you? This was the task.
What do the holidays mean to you?
Christmas time. So we went outside.
What do the holidays mean to you? The holidays mean excuse for families to get together.
An excuse for families to get together, he said. I love it. But if you noticed, preface to this, we actually asked, do you mind if we ask you a question? Are you okay with us? The distance that we have. And he's like, yes, yes, yes. We had to go through these things that we never had to go through before.
Whatever religion or culture they're from, and try to have some joy in a dark and cold time of the year.
Try to find some joy in a dark time of the year or cold time of the year. So imagine the student can't see, she has to learn from just his eyes almost, what are his eyes saying? And so it's a challenge, but it's almost like an extra fun challenge for them to really get used to learning with masks.
What did you come from that?
You like spending time with family in the holidays?
So she caught that. Oh, you like, what did you catch from that, right? So interestingly, he is actually kind of a little bit joking. It's an excuse to get together for the holidays, right?
Because my family doesn't live in Canada, so I'm kind of alone on the holiday. I would love
So he actually said, I'm alone. My family's not even here.
to see my family on the holidays. I miss them.
Well, thank you, Paul. I
Thank you very
appreciate
much.
your
Have a
time.
beautiful day.
Thank you. So a follow-up question. You could have said it. So talking, what could we have done as a follow-up question? Well, how do you feel about your family being away? And he's like, you know what? Can we get together for a coffee afterwards? I'm alone. And so it's like, all right. And we went to a little nearby cafe and ordered some drinks, and it was a blast. But again, the power of, a stranger is just a friend you haven't met yet kind of approach, right? And so the student walked away really, learning a lot of learning with a mask and what it means to be now 1 week in Canada and talking to a stranger. So that was really powerful. And so when I think about how other schools and programs have pivoted here in Toronto, Judy probably knows, nearly 30 schools have actually closed here in Toronto, ESL schools, because they weren't doing anything different that would help sustain them in the first place. They were still doing the same old things. And so that was a little bit frustrating to see. And so I actually have a lot of agencies and reaching out to me, and even frustrated ESL teachers asking me, Anesh, how do I start my own on the spot language, what you're doing in my city? Because the government's opening up restrictions and so I've used this time, another pivot, which Judy knows about, is to develop an online, how do I make my city, my classroom program so teachers can do this in their cities? Because people are frustrated with either doing things online, they're low paid, working student to student to student, and they're looking for new ways of learning. So I've developed this language coaching, how to make the city your classroom program. I'm actually piloting it. So similarly to other programs, I'm actually going to have a beginner kind of beta testing group for people who want to do this in their city. I wasn't sure who was going to attend today, but if you're interested, fire me an email. I'd love to have a chat with you, and really excited about what is this new paradigm of education, getting out again. But the learning will be happening online, the coaching of how to go about doing this. But hopefully to empower other teachers to get outside and empower them to make a decent income, also doing what I've been doing for the past 13 years. So thank you, Gabriella and Carrie for the platform, and Judy and Carolyn and Kathy for being part of this conversation. I'm hoping that there's more travel, and I think there is going to be a massive influx of students going, living, studying, traveling abroad. And so if you want to be part of this new wave and be able to offer an in-person solution, please let me know. And thank you so much for your time and kind of open up to any questions or comments on to everyone. Oh, and yeah.
I'm not saying a question yet. I'm saying a comment. Something that I've noticed that stayed is the social distancing. People just naturally stand a little bit farther apart. I've always loved your program. There's tremendous value in it. I love to see that it's going to be some kind of program that others can implement in other cities, whatever that is, the pattern, the system is portable. You know, it's not a Toronto thing, it's a language thing. So it can happen anywhere. Yeah, no, good job. You're pretty flexible and you're a fantastic networker.
Appreciate your.
The guy speaks 7 languages, you guys. Like hard ones, Japanese, and like a lot. So if you want to learn how to learn a language, I would listen to the guy who knows so many.
It is the next phase. We're gonna have on the spot Berlin. You know, we're gonna have on the spot London. You know, I mean, Jason West did it years and years ago. What she was trying to do, that Judy introduced me to, and so I'm hoping to teach other people the framework of what I do, and
yeah, the framework, yeah.
Really show them the roadmap of
Principles.
how you can do this. And I have the agency
Exactly.
connections
Yeah.
and the partnerships that will enable you to be able to do this. So thank you so much for your time and the platform to share. And thank you all for your support.
Thank you very much for being
Nice
here.
to hear from you.
Yeah, I think it was very interesting to see the very many facets of, you know, pivoting and what pivoting means for everybody. For everyone, it was slightly different, but I think in general we agreed on the basic, you know, ideas that were flowing from us, and it was very, very fruitful conversation. I'm going to type it up. I've been typing as we're talking, so probably get together a blog post. Yeah.
Brilliant.
About this, I think that would be a really good idea. Yeah, Carolyn raised her hand.
Oh, no, I meant to clap.
Oh, nice.
Maybe it
I
was
want to circle around to something and just put this out there, because we kind of hit the perimeter of it. And I've seen a lot lately on the responsibility of the English speakers to modify their speaking to accommodate people whose first language is not English. And that's new. That's really new, is to take ownership and to recognize, you know, as the English speaker, it's our responsibility to manage the communication. It's not their responsibility to speak XXX level or XXX grammar. And that's a really new movement. And Anesh, your stuff and coaching speaks right to that. It's an entirely different atmosphere for communicating with English speakers. And I just noticed, I wondered if anybody else noticed it. I see post after post, it's our responsibility. I think, oh my God, I've never heard that before. And I thought it for a long, long time. I don't know if anybody.
That's what Heather Hansen does, right? Heather Hansen actually is one of the biggest advocates of
and,
that.
Rachel Tsatteri, she also won a case against a language school.
Right.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's been circulating on LinkedIn and Facebook also. She actually won a court case and received compensation for not even getting to the interview. So based on her CV, they said, sorry, we appreciate you've got, you know, a great CV, but unfortunately, you know, we only deal with, you know, native speakers. It's like, on what grounds? Did you hear me speak? Is it my pronunciation? Is it? I mean, you can't do that. So this is getting to be a big thing. I think also connecting with what Judy said very quickly, I think it's more about this being more open and going with the flow, which is, I think a lot of people are experiencing. It also leads to more appreciation of diversity, and I think that's really important. So we're kind of like All right, okay, so you're German. Okay, so you're French and you know you've got an accent or you don't speak English or yeah, that's
Can
fine.
we
I
make
mean, why
money
not?
online
You know,
though,
so this global thing.
Absolutely. Hi, my name.
Hello.
Yeah, I'd like to say about that.
Great comment there by Carolyn.
In my work in language coaching executives, the whole premise of it kind of speaks to that in terms of like,
Mhm.
you're not doing it wrong. Maybe the native speaker you're speaking to is making you believe that you are. So how are you going to empower yourself to address that situation, right? Like changing that shift of like, I don't know enough, I can't say enough, I need more this and that and whatever. No, you probably don't. There's probably a native speaker somewhere that needs a little bit more like intercultural communication training.
No, there's a whole field of language coaching that is training executives who speak English as a native language to communicate internationally. It's a small subgroup. Craig Storty, who's in the intercultural world, he will be coming out with a book this year that is 50 tips for native speakers to communicate effectively with non-native speakers.
I love that.
Okay.
Okay, nice.
Brilliant.
Nice.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, it's
And-
really important.
And I think we could probably go on for hours going further into this with stories, but thank you guys all so much for this platform. Sorry,
We'll
go ahead,
meet in a
Carolyn.
we'll meet in a cocktail lounge in London.
we will.
And continue.
We will.
Yes, we will.
Definitely. Yeah. Looking forward to that one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anesh, and everyone who
Absolutely.
attended
Thank you
today,
all.
all of your interaction, and yeah.
Lovely. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. And thank you, Mika, Catherine, Farnak, Carolyn, for joining Gabriella and I and being part of this journey. This is great.
Yeah. And let's continue. All right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.